just introduce you, Phil. All right. Okay, well, hello to all watching and welcome to Cedarwood Faces. This is episode 9 of Cedarwood Faces Series, and today we're speaking with Phil Knox, author, speaker, and director of mission and evangelism at Evangelical Alliance. And as many of you know who've been following this series so far, the aim of it really is to get to know people, organizations, and supporters who are involved in partnering with Cedarwood Festival in 2021 and beyond. So if you would like to ask any questions during the next few minutes for the conversation, then just put them in the YouTube chat and we'll field them from there. But yeah, without further ado, just like to welcome Phil to the call. So Phil, good to have you on, and to give our viewers some context, where are you calling from today? Which part of the planet?
Right, well, good evening, everybody. I'm coming to you live from the beautiful city of Birmingham this evening. So right here in the West Midlands. It's absolutely checking it down, but aside from that, glorious place to be.
Great, awesome, cool. We're gonna hear a bit more about that as we go. Karen, I'm delighted to have Karen Todd with us today. Karen's one of the trustees at Cedarwood Festival and director of communications at Moorlands Theological College as well. So great to have you on, Karen. And where are you calling in from?
I'm calling in from Bournemouth, and it's not chucking it down, as Phil says. It's a pleasant night, actually. So sorry about that, Phil, but it's quite nice down south.
Well, that's great. Well, kind of following on with all the South often boasts about, not what can be said from what it is right now in the North. So I'm calling in from just in the kind of just above the Midlands, York area, the very, very north for some, but quite south for others as well. So one of those fun areas. But without further ado, Phil, it's great to have you on again. And today we're just going to talk a bit about your life, your background, the ministry, and also look at the work of the Evangelical Alliance. We'll talk a bit about Cedarwood Festival, of course, and dip in and out of those areas. So for those who don't know you, Phil, let's just kick off with an overview, 30,000 feet, kind of background of your life, and yeah, then we'll kind of dig a bit deeper as we go. So keep it under 45 minutes, and then we'll dig in from there, mate.
Yeah, great. Thank you. An overview of my life in 45 minutes or 45 seconds. Yeah, great. So I was born in Sheffield. So I'm from a little bit further north. I'm a missionary to the Midlands, and grew up in a kind of Christian family. Decided to follow Jesus when I was 6 years old. I was even more excitable then than I am now. Had an amazing just teenage years. Just loved school. Had loads of friends. Life was brilliant. But I guess the rubber really hit the road for me when I was 21 years old. I was at university, I studied law at uni. So the plan was never Christian ministry. The plan was to go and earn loads of money and be a really successful lawyer. But then 21, I was having lunch with my mum. The phone rings and it's a family friend, and they say, "Phil, I'm really sorry, but this morning your dad has died." And these words kind of just ripped my world apart, just completely life changer in that moment. And for me, I guess what a huge part of my story in terms of following Jesus is that was a moment for me to decide, do I keep going with faith, or do I say, "God, stuff you for letting this happen"? This God I'd followed for 15 years or so. And actually, my story is that in that moment said, actually, God, I'm gonna choose to throw myself on you. And in all the years I've followed Jesus, the closest I've ever known God is in those first few weeks after Dad died. And then another amazing thing I find about kind of following Jesus really is that it gives real purpose and meaning. So kind of having done the law degree, that was never the plan, but felt really cool to join an organization called Youth for Christ. I was 21, I had no kind of qualifications in Christian youth ministry, but just wanted to tell people about Jesus. I guess I had that from a very young age. And so for over a decade, 13 years, just spent time sharing my faith with young people, trying to equip and inspire young people to share their faith. And then joined the Evangelical Alliance in September 2018 as head of mission to young adults, wanting to see the whole church desperately reach the the so-called missing generation of 20s and 30s, and equip and inspire the whole church to be more effective in sharing faith. Along the way, married a beautiful girl called Danny. We've been married since 2008. We've got 2 little boys called Caleb and Joss. Caleb's 8 years old and into Pokemon YouTube videos I don't understand already. And loads of football and running. He was just tonight. He was playing football outside in the rain till tea time, and comes in this happy, soaking wet mess. And Joss, who's 2 years old, who is the most boisterous, Captain Chaos-like, whirling dervish kind of accident waiting to happen. Last week, he let himself out the front door just on his own, and was on the front drive just chatting to the neighbour. So we're in for a lot of fun with him, I think, over the years. I'm also part of a local church here in Birmingham called St Boniface, part of the leadership team there, an Anglican church. We're hopefully recruiting a new vicar in the coming months, but it's a real joy to be part of the leadership there. So yeah, that's a little bit about me. I guess my claim to fame is that I once broke a world record for the world's longest 5-a-side football match. We played football for 48 hours, and the knees have never been quite the same since. So yeah, there's a little summary of my life.
Phil, thanks so much for that. Yeah, so you're in Birmingham and you're doing a national role within Evangelical Alliance. Great to hear that. And one thing we like to do just at the start of these conversations is a lot of speakers, as we travel around, we often don't get the chance to share, specifically about our story, how we came to know Christ as Lord and Savior. And I think one of the things it's really important to do is actually just give that opportunity. I know you mentioned a few minutes just ago about the catalyst that your father had in that, but I just wondered if you could just spend a few minutes just unpacking that. What was it for you that made you make that commitment, and just give our viewers something that they're not going to get, obviously, when you're speaking on a topic at a festival. It's really nice to get that kind of close encounter. So yeah, feel free to share that.
Yeah, great. I mean, I guess like many people, I've not got that kind of glamorous, story of coming to faith. I think, and I make the point, maybe come on to the book in a moment, but I make the point in the book that about sharing faith, that so many of us don't think we've got a story, because I think I say something like, my teenage years were more projects, hugs and sausage rolls rather than sex, drugs and rock and roll. I really found it quite boring teenage years in comparison with many. So I've not got that kind of drugs to Christ story. But I guess what it is, like many people who've grown up in Christian families, kind of key moments along the way. So I do recognize that moment, age 6, when someone just told me that I could be friends with Jesus, that I could be forgiven for the stuff I've done wrong. And even at 6 years old, I knew that I needed forgiving for some stuff, and then from my teenage years, I guess a really key moment was knowing that I needed a sense of identity, because like many teenage lads just really struggled, didn't really express it, but really struggled with who I was. So threw myself into trying to achieve stuff and do really well at school and exams and stuff. Threw myself into trying to make myself look attractive for members of the opposite sex, and that was a complete disaster as well. And so was searching in all kinds of places for identity. Yeah, I guess as a teenager, looking back, my source of identity, knowing that I was loved for who I was and loved by the King of Kings, that was huge. Kind of another decision moment where I was like, yes, God, this is something I want to throw myself into and know. And had key moments, I guess, like many people in my kind of teens and early 20s, of just euphoric moments in, a little bit like, what we're trying to do with Cedarwood, of moments of encounter with God that were profound. And sometimes in those moments you go, gosh, there's got to be a God, right? You know what I mean? Yeah. And I guess another one of those moments was when my best mate came to faith at 21. Because I guess, you see the change in someone. So my best mate, who I grew up with kind of through school, grew up in a family that was deeply anti-God, deeply anti-faith. He was the last person I would ever think would come to know Jesus. And yet at 21, God speaks to him. He gives up kind of drink and drugs and girls and stuff, and then describes his life with Jesus as more free than he's ever been. So that's another key moment when I look and go, wow, God, you can transform someone's life. And then I guess, talking about the death of my dad, that was another key moment. And then more recently, I've been diagnosed with the same heart condition that's killed my dad. And there are moments where, as a result, I'm in great hands. The NHS are amazing. I'm on drugs and all that kind of stuff. The right kind. And there would be moments where I wake up in the middle of the night with my heart pounding, thinking, is this my moment?
Yeah.
And I can't tell you what a difference it makes knowing God is with me in that moment, and knowing that, you know, I don't know who holds my future. I don't know what my future holds, but I know who holds my future, right? So there's something of, and even for my family, people go, do you not worry if you die? You know, what about your family? Well, you know, I've grown up in a family that was fatherless, and yet God was there. And so I think for many people, their story and their journey is lots of different moments over a period of time, rather than that dramatic kind of conversion moment.
Yeah, I totally relate to that, Phil. Yeah, it's really, really interesting what you said there. I think one thing that a friend of mine, I was once speaking at an event, and this guy came up to me and he said he was really ashamed of his story. You know, he was a really big guy, and a lot of people made fun of him, and he felt like he was ashamed because he didn't feel it was kind of the wow that other people had, and because of his image, he didn't feel that way. You know, and I remember one of my other friends went up to him and just said, you know, mate, you know, your story is the most important one. You know why? Because it's the one that's going to get you to heaven. Because it's a personal thing. It's a personal thing, and I think too many people get caught up with this. Oh, you know, it's got to be this amazing thing. It's got to have this amazing thing. You know, it is your story, and everyone's story is totally different. And the work of salvation in someone's heart is a miracle, whatever form that takes.
Yeah, come on.
And I think that's just something amazing. You know, just to back up what you just shared there. You know, it doesn't matter what your image is like or whatever. So yeah, Karen, I know you had something you wanted to say as well.
Similar thing, actually. I think it's really important for our viewers to hear this, because I'm very similar. I kind of grew up, a real blessing to be growing up in a Christian family, gave my life to Christ at 5, went through my teenage years, questioned it, which is a healthy thing, but didn't walk away from Christ, kept going for him. And I remember, like, often just thinking, I don't have a story, I don't have a testimony, I don't have I went from this to this. And now, and I am so passionate about some of us sharing that we have such a story. I mean, this is what I want for my children, is for that heritage, that they're now third generation Christians, that they own their own salvation, but actually they don't have the baggage of what so many people have to overcome. They don't have the identity issues, and this is an amazing story to share, that we know that we are loved, that we do have a testimony, just as powerful as somebody who was in the gutter and their life was transformed because of the saving grace of Jesus. It's just as powerful to have known Jesus when you were 5 and for him to have been the Lord of your life. And I think we want to encourage young people. And when we get to the festival, there's going to be young people that have never heard the name of Jesus. And there's going to be people that have heard it from the moment they were born. And all of them have value in his eyes. And all of them, we want to see them known Christ for themselves and be transformed by him. And I think it's powerful for young people to hear that their story doesn't need to compare to someone else's that might seem more glamorous or more shocking, but actually that Christ has chosen them and looked after them and looked out for them, and that they have value in their story. And that's a good story to share. Their identity in Christ is something to celebrate. If they get there when they are 10 years old, boy, what can they do for the kingdom? It's so cool, right? So I think it's great hearing your story, and you might have noticed I just feel a little bit passionate about that we want to be celebrating those stories as well.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%.
Yeah, I might just add as well, if someone comes to Christ at 50 or 60, there's still a lot God can do with them. You know, they're not discounted there as well. You know, there's such a wealth of wisdom, and there's so many people I've spoken to, probably you guys as well, who have come to faith late, and that what God is doing with them is phenomenal. You know, we're called to be clay, aren't we? To be molded, and I think, as long as we're able to be molded, then he can be used. So we can be used. So yeah. So Phil, wanted to just firstly thank you for sharing that. It's a vulnerable thing, but I think it's very important that viewers hear that we all have things going on in our lives, and we've talked, I know, off air about the heart conditions and how close that is, pardon the pun, but it is something that I think it's good, I think, to have those things that challenge us in life, that remind us to go, right, well, actually, I'm not infallible, I'm far from it, and I need someone to stand on. So yeah, thanks for sharing that. Jumping on to kind of ministry, we know life is ministry, but specifically talking about kind of the kind of employed roles that you've had. Karen and I are just going to jump through some questions that would be good and helpful for our kind of viewers to maybe understand. So for those who don't know, well, they may know because Roy shared a bit about Youth for Christ last week. For those who don't know, obviously Youth for Christ is a mission organization that is trying to point youth to Christ. Very clear, it says on the tin. But what was your specific role, Phil, and how did you get involved with that? And throughout the 10 years you were there, obviously a long time, to be an organization, what did you see as the how did your role progress, and what were some of the standout stories that you had from that?
Yeah, thanks. A whole range of stuff. I felt I did loads of jobs in there, but always telling people about Jesus. Youth for Christ.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember the strap line from when I worked there. Taking good news relevantly to every young person in Britain. That was the strap line I said for 13 years. Did a load of jobs. I mean, I got involved because I volunteered as a student. So my old youth worker got me involved. And basically, when I was a student studying law, I was quite poor. And so at weekends, got the chance to go and tell young people about Jesus on a weekend away. I got fed properly and I didn't have to worry about the electric bill. It was amazing. And then but also just saw hundreds of teenagers give their lives to Jesus. And I'm like, this is amazing. So then what happened was, when I finished my law degree, I met my still now boss, Gavin Calvert, at a wedding, and he recruited me. And basically, the cheesy line is between us friends is that he ruins my promising legal career and recruited me to Youth for Christ. The plan was only to go there for a few years and then go back to law, but that still hasn't happened. I'm not sure I'll be a very good lawyer anyway. Too excitable, but it works for us as an evangelist. There's lots of lawyers who've become evangelists, Nicky Gumbel. It's great. Anyway, so my first job in Youth for Christ was running weekends away and telling young people about Jesus. I was kind of a cross between Bear Grylls, Anton Deck, and Billy Graham. It was glorious, and literally in that time saw hundreds and hundreds of young people say yes to Jesus. It was amazing. Then I got married, and it turns out it's not good for your marriage to be away virtually every weekend, even if you're telling kids about Jesus, and there's only so many you can drag her along to. So then kind of found a job kind of overseeing resources, basically to empower the church to reach young people. And also, I've always had this thing in my heart about equipping people to share their faith. Research and experience tells me that the way people come to faith is through people, through friends and family members and neighbours and work colleagues and school friends and university mates. And so I guess I've given my life to try and equip and inspire Christians to share their faith with their friends. That's what my book's about. That's what I do now at the EA, but that's what I did for over a decade at Youth for Christ with young people. Just said to young people, look, if number one, most people who come to faith do so under the age of 23, and number two, most people who come to faith come to a friend, how much resource should we be plowing into young people and young adults to get them equipped and inspired to share their faith with their friends? As a missional strategy, it makes a huge amount of sense to do that. And so did a number of different roles within that, ended up being part of the kind of leadership team at YFC, looking after all kinds of different aspects. But it was a real adventure. There were so many people who were just passionate about the cause, who, the terms and conditions were pretty terrible. We could have got paid loads more elsewhere, but we just loved it for the adventure. We felt cool to do it. And we saw every week kids come to faith. And that was just, it was an absolute dream. It's brilliant.
Amazing. I mean, so Phil, the question is, there's a lot of excitement and a lot of really good stuff that we hear about YFC. Have you grown up? Why the change to EA? What's happened? You've moved to EA. Tell us why.
No, I can tell you exactly why. It was a terrible moment where I kind of, because I basically had to, there was a moment in kind of about, I'm trying to think now, probably springtime 2017 probably, and God just began to break my heart for the whole church. And so that started happening. I started reading some bits around the church, and I just began to, I'm not a massive crier, but I started to, God was really moving me in that area. And then the second thing that happened was all the stuff we'd done locally. We'd been involved locally in our church doing youth ministry for over a decade. And God had done incredible things. But suddenly what happened was there was a flip in the kingdom where God started using me amongst slightly older people, young adults, being part of, I started getting more excited about running Alpha at our church than I did about running the youth group on a Wednesday night. And something changed in my heart where I almost had this moment. I describe it as coming out, but that's probably not the right terminology. Where I basically had to say to myself and everybody else, I'm not a youth worker doing evangelism. I'm an evangelist doing youth ministry.
Mm-hmm.
And so God began to break my heart for my own generation as well.
Mm-hmm.
And so there was something about the whole church. And so then the kind of a job opening happened at the EA. I'd known the EA for being on their council for a while, and felt God really clear. In fact, part of this journey was amazing, actually. I had a phone call from a cousin of mine who called me up out the blue, didn't know anything that was happening, and said, the Lord's calling you into a new season. There's a door opening. You gotta walk through it. And do you know what I mean? Sometimes when that happens, you go, yeah, maybe the Lord's calling me on from 30 in this particular role. So that was the journey.
So you've mentioned EA, we've mentioned EA, we've called it EA, we haven't actually said its real name. Can you tell the viewers a little bit about the Evangelical Alliance? How long has it been existing? What's it do? What's your role in it?
Yeah, you can tell you're a comms director, Karen. Now I'm in trouble. Now I'm in trouble with my comms director for not full naming the Evangelical Alliance. So yeah, Evangelical Alliance. We've existed for 175 years. We're the oldest and largest movement of evangelicals seeking to unite, to speak for, and to equip and inspire the 2 million evangelicals in the UK. And so the first thing to say is we're a membership organisation. So we're an alliance. So we are thousands of churches, hundreds of organisations, tens of thousands of individuals. And we do a couple of really key things for the church. We equip and inspire mission. Our mission statement is to together make Jesus known. So I guess one of my bits within that, coming onto that, is I want to equip and inspire every Christian to be able to share their faith with their friends. But we've got a website called A Great Commission, which gives missional ideas for whatever demographic we're trying to reach. We are massively passionate about equipping the church for mission. But the second thing we do around unity is about bringing together people who are different backgrounds of evangelicals, different ethnicities, different stories, different denominations. We exist to unite the evangelical church. And then the third piece is around speaking up on behalf of evangelicals. Mm-hmm. So we speak at the highest levels of government on the issues that really matter. So stuff around free speech, stuff around the really key issues in the specific nations. And yeah, so that's what we do. But our strength is in our membership. So if you're watching this, you're not an EA member, would encourage you to become one. And yeah, so that's what we do. Yeah, it's good. You just
redeemed yourself, I think, with that last comment. Joe's going to be very impressed.
Okay, so it's the Evangelical Alliance for anyone who's just joining us now, and Phil is Director of Mission and Young Adults there. So it's great to have you on again, Phil. So jumping onto that, it's we're proud to be Evangelical Alliance members. Actually, I'll just say it again, Evangelical Alliance. It's great to be members, and we do believe in, we stand by the vision of that unity movement, and it's really exciting to be part of that. And I would encourage others as well. And there's many of our members of and partners of Cedarwood Festival are also members. So it's really great to have them probably watching as well. But just in terms of the membership breadth, Phil, maybe just share a bit about what that spans. You said individuals, you said organizations, churches. I guess that's included as well. Can you just share kind of maybe some of the it's highest profile members, maybe who are part of the alliance, maybe just to give people a bit of a snapshot of that?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't want to, categorize into high profile, low profile members. Obviously, Cedarwood Festival is obviously our favorite member right now. I mean, if you want to see, if you go on the website, we have a list of all of our member churches and organizations. But what I would say is it really spans the breadth of evangelicalism. So from kind of some churches who would be very, very kind of reformed and conservative, right through to kind of really charismatic churches across all denominations, Anglicans, Baptists, Methodists, Redeemed Christian Church of God. We've got right across the spectrum. And I think one of the, it talks about what some of the exciting bits. Some of the exciting bits recently have been uniting church across different ethnic backgrounds. And so the work of the One People Commission to bring together the Black majority churches with and build friendships. And I think that's one of the really key things that we do. Really, we help people make friends who would never normally be in the kind of same room as each other. And so some of the fastest growing churches in the country are EA members. But what we can do is help other churches learn from and bring together around that kind of unity piece. And one of the things we do is host tables. So, for example, recently my passion and work is around young adults. So we host tables around specialists from across the whole breadth of evangelicalism and different backgrounds and stories come around and sit around a table. And we just discuss how to best reach young adults, how to best disciple 20s and 30s. And everybody wins because we go away with new friends, with new networks, but also new fresh ideas and resources to move us forward.
Great. Well, I guess that's kind of eradicated the question I was just going to ask, which you beautifully answered, which was probably, I'm guessing, the favorite part of your job is the people aspect. From what I'm understanding, as probably an extrovert like myself, that's something that is enjoyable. Would that be a fair statement, or?
Yeah, after the really obvious answer, which is seeing people come to faith.
Of course.
You know what I mean? I think that, that I'm first and foremost an evangelist, and I just, there's nothing like it. Actually, the moment where someone says yes to Jesus, and even better, actually, David, is moments kind of much further down the line where someone comes up to me. I had a moment a couple of summers ago where this lad comes up to me, and he almost looked as old as me, but it was clear from what he said next that he wasn't. When he said, "Do you remember me?" I said, "No." He goes, "You I became a Christian at a camp you preached at when I was like 14," and I'm like, I felt so old, it was untrue. But that moment, and the challenge as an evangelist is you're in the disappointment industry. More people say no than say yes often. But now and again comes a moment where someone comes up to you and says, "Jesus changed my life," and you were part of the story, and that's worth every moment.
Yeah, no, I totally hear that. Yeah, well, it's amazing to hear so many people. You've seen so many people come to Christ. It must be such a joy to those for seeing that. So in terms of, obviously we're talking in a global pandemic. We're coming to the end of it, hopefully, in the UK. We've, the church, in fact, the whole of society has been through the mill, and there's not anyone, I don't think, who's not been affected by what's been going on. But we have been past tense, and we continue to be really excited about how we've, churches and organizations have adapted and, flipped some of what they're doing during the pandemic to, look at still operating in a really effective way. So I wonder if you could just share, Phil. I know we've talked a bit about it off air as well, but maybe some of the ways that EA, Evangelical Alliance, has kind of pivoted or kind of engaged people differently because of the pandemic.
Yeah, I guess the main way really has been we flipped everything at the beginning, came up with an emergency strategic plan, which was largely around supporting and serving our members. So for those 3,500 member churches, we just desperately wanted to hear from them as to what was going on, but B, just wanted to support them, recognizing this was a moment for the church to step up, and a moment which was bittersweet. So in some ways, it was incredibly painful, wasn't it? So many people died. My own mum died, not of coronavirus, but during the time. And when you'd speak to people, there was this and still is in some ways, this anxiety and bereavement going on. But at the same time, so a real spiritual hunger. So in terms of my area of expertise, somewhere between a third and a half of all 18 to 30s have checked out online church in the last 12 months. Isn't that amazing? They're supposed to be the missing generation. Now, and I think, it's important to kind of qualify that. I don't think they're all going to be banging the doors down as a church when we go back, but it shows something of the spiritual hunger that we've experienced in our nation. Mm-hmm. So what we did as EA is we first of all did quite a bit of research. So we asked our member churches and other churches what was going on, so we could get a kind of bird's eye view of what God was doing across the nation, and then be able to kind of speak with intelligence and then meet the needs of those people and call on our member organizations and to try and kind of send the right resources to the right place, if you like. But also we called every single one of our member churches and member organizations and just to say, we're praying for you. Thank you for all you're doing. And I think sometimes you remember in those moments who was there for you and who wasn't there for you. And we really wanted to be there for our members and just to really encourage, what often were were pastors and leaders who were tired, who were kind of were trying to adapt to a world that they certainly weren't trained for. So that was a huge part of it. But then what that became was an initiative called Changing Church, where we recognized that there were some lessons to learn from the pandemic, you know, and we didn't want to just go back to where we were before. So the phase that Changing Church program's at the moment is re-entry. So we're asking, what does the church need to look like for the next 10 years? What have we learned from the pandemic? So one really, you know, cool example of that in our own churches, we'd never done any streaming of services online. And looking back now, we're like, why didn't we? Because we've got, you know, several people in our church family who can't actually physically get to church. And we've never considered it until no one can get to church, which is, you know, to some extent shame on us. But what we realized is that, you know, moving forward, we just can't go back to not doing that. So, but also at the moment, some of my friends who can't get to the physical building are contributing to church. So it's not good enough for us to just stream it to their home. They've still got to be able to do that. So we're working on a solution at the moment, which is like having a Zoom screen on one side of the church so that, you know, my friends Eric and Maureen can be there every Sunday. And then afterwards, when people are having a cup of coffee, they can go over to the screen and talk to them before they have their lunch. You know, we've got to learn from some of that stuff. You know, we've got to learn from things like online alpha. So, you know, last autumn, there were 5,000 online alpha courses that took place last year. Before that, there'd been 0. So suddenly this whole thing kind of kicked off, and we had more people at our alpha course last autumn than we've ever had. So we've decided we'll do at least one weekly online group as a result of that. I mean, there's loads to learn, isn't there? But I guess that's what we're trying to help the church navigate and ask those questions, and how we continue to respond to what will still be the deep economic problems in our nation as we emerge from the effects of the kind of economic downturn.
So that's an amazing kind of corporate response. And very supportive of churches and church leaders. But for you personally, who you must have really enjoyed being on the road and going around and being able to share the good news and connect with people and network and that, how's that been for you personally with not being able to do that in the physical? Yet we've been creative in how we do it, but what's it actually been like for you?
Yeah, it's been terrible. It's been absolutely terrible. In 2019, I preached 100 times, all of them in person, and then suddenly 2020 happens, and I'm like, what do I do? And then I had that thing, and this sounds terrible. My family completely understand. It's been amazing to spend more time with my family. You know, have a 2-year-old who recognizes me rather than this guy who comes, you know, that kind of stuff. So, but sometimes you kind of, you know, you really preach your heart out, and then like normally you'd have to drive home to kind of recover and get a coffee, you know, whereas now you kind of, you know, you turn the laptop, go upstairs, and then your 2-year-old's kind of rugby tackles you. So that's been, I mean, to be fair, that's really lovely. But yeah, I've really missed being with people. It's the technology's amazing, but it really isn't the same. So you're really looking forward to coming to Cedarwood, to being on the road, to preaching in churches again. And I think there's going to be a real celebration moment. Actually, I think people are going to be, over the next few months, hopefully, as things begin to rebound. Can you imagine the first moment we get to sing in church again? It's going to be amazing, isn't it?
It's going to sound heavenly, isn't it? It's going to sound awesome.
And even if the worship band are out of tune and, you know, people forget the words, it's going to be incredible. So yeah, really looking forward to it.
Yeah, it's so relatable. David and I are both people, and I remember the first lockdown, just kind of thinking like, I am so positively wired. I see the good in everything, and I was like, why am I feeling like now there's people that I've got furlough envy and people that I really don't want to see? Like, this isn't me. And then I realized it was the lack of the incidentals, the couple of minutes here, the 5 minutes there, the silly conversations weren't happening because everything was so organized. You were only talking to people because you were part of a meeting and just that chit chat and stuff. And I was like, my piggy bank is empty right now. I need to fill it back up. And I've been really blessed because I have had to come to work ever since you know, the first lockdown. And I tell you, it's life-changing just being able, even if it's only 1 or 2 people, it's life-changing when you're wired in a certain way, just to be able to see a real human being. And we got to get together at the weekend for the festival, just a few of us. And again, it's like, whoa, people have arms and legs and bodies. This is awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's some awesome insight there, Phil. Thanks for sharing that. And we actually had a question come in just about kind of churches and specifically that connection between the virtual and young adults actually. And so one of the questions is, how do you think leaders will help people who've attended or joined church virtually be really integrated as the buildings open up again? Because it's great to have that kind of online presence and have 1,000 people online, but then you've got your congregation that you had previously. How are those going to be mixed? It's a fun and games, isn't it? I don't know if you had any thoughts on that. I know it's a question that's come in.
I tell you what, I think we have learned. I think we've learned that we need to extend our foyer, and by that I mean, I think what online has meant is that people can look from afar without having to commit and be seen. So to give you one example of that, we've had a couple join our church. We've met on Zoom, so we've not, because we've been out without a vicar, we've had no staff to put together a nice slick live stream in the week. So we've done Zoom every week. And one thing we observed in this couple who joined the church is that for the first 3 months, they didn't turn the camera on, right? So they kind of come along and that, they just wanted to have a look without kind of being seen, and that's absolutely fine, isn't it? There's no problem with that. And you wonder whether people have done alpha and they've had their camera off, and that's okay. And then there was this moment in I don't know, September or October last year where they've been coming for a while, and suddenly everyone's like, "Way, that's what you look like," And I think I think we can really learn from those kind of journeys. And I think the bar for belonging and the bar for welcome has been quite high for belonging and low for welcome, probably.
Yeah.
So I think one of the real kind of serious kind of considerations we've got to give, but to both our online stuff and our in-person stuff, is really ramping up our welcome. That's not, it's not kind of being over the top, but how do we do more than just shake people's hands and give them a smile at the door, and really help kind of facilitate friendship and help people think this is a place where I can belong.
Yeah.
And then with our foyer really extends that, so that at whatever point of contact people come in, whether that be kind of online or kind of hang around the back, people have the opportunity to come and see and have a look, and say, actually, this is something I really want to explore more for myself.
Yeah.
I think that's what I'd say. There's two big principles there.
Yeah.
The physical outworking, we've just got to have a go, but we can't lose those principles, I don't think.
No, it's awesome. That's really interesting then. And I can definitely resonate to some of those. I mean, we've had a number of people we've actually hired for the Cedarwood team during this lockdown. And, some of them we've met in person now, which is a real blessing. But it's always fun and games when you kind of meet for the first time. We've been speaking for the last 6 months. Actually, you're only 5 foot. And, right, you're that's not a problem. But it's just against what you thought it was, and it's all these lovely things. And, you're louder in real life, or, that kind of thing. It's fascinating. And I think it's been a real joy. I don't know what other people think, but I found that particularly fascinating. And then there's been one special story, which I know this person won't mind me sharing, but essentially there's a church that I'm affiliated with, and there's someone who's been watching in Canada, the church, because they're planning to move to the UK, and they've been watching the services diligently. And in fact, they've already for the last 6 months, they've already been in touch with the team, leadership team, saying, we've seen you online on Zoom. It's great to speak. How can we get involved now before we have moved to England, to London? And actually, can we join a Connect group now? And how can we start serving before we actually get there in the flesh? So that when they do, they've got the ground running. And it's all these kind of things where who on earth would ever think of starting to serve before you've actually met someone in the flesh? But these are all happening now because of where we are. And I think it's beautiful. But yeah, that was one of the questions come in. Thanks for those thoughts, Phil. Moving on to your book. I know you have written a book recently, and I've read parts of it, which have been really enlightening. And so it's just going to give you a chance to talk a bit about it now. But it's called Story Bearers, if I'm correct. And I'd love for you to just share a bit about how that book came about, and a bit about it as well for people, so they can maybe go and get it themselves.
Yeah, if I will, the book's called Story Bearer, so I might tell you about it with a story. So I'm here today because of a guy called Albert McMacken, and Albert had a friend called William. William wasn't a Christian. Albert was a Christian. Albert prayed for his mate William to come to faith, And he kept praying. Nothing really happened. And then an evangelist came to town. Albert tried to persuade his mate to come to hear the evangelist. William said no. Eventually, William said yes when Albert said, "You can drive the bus." William hangs around at the back of the tent and eventually hears the gospel, gives his life to Jesus. And William is better known as someone called Billy Graham. And Billy Graham preached the gospel during his lifetime to an estimated lifetime audience of 2.2 billion people. Spoke to 215 million people live in the flesh. And 2.2 million people at those events gave their lives to Jesus. One of those people was my dad. And my dad was instrumental in helping me come to faith. I'm here because of my dad. I'm here because of Billy Graham. I'm also here as a result of Albert McMackin's faithful witness. Here's the deal. We can't all be Billy Grahams, but we can all be Albert McMackins. And the book is written so that we're all a bit more Albert. And that I'm absolutely convinced that if the world's going to change, if revival's going to come in the way we all hope it will, a key part of that will be every Christian knowing they've got a story, like we talked about at the beginning of this call, being able to share that story, praying for mates to come to faith. Research tells us that the most effective person, someone coming to faith, important person, is a friend or a family member. And so what would it look like if every single Christian in the UK was better equipped and more inspired to share their faith with their friends, was praying for some mates regularly, and if their mate said to them, "Why are you a Christian?" they were able to share in a passionate and articulate way, "This is my story, and this is why I follow Jesus." I think that can have a real impact. So that's what the book's about. The book is really simply there to do a few things. First of all, it's there to help someone share the gospel really simply. So if someone says, "What's the Christian faith about?" they can give an answer. It's really helpful to help people articulate their own story. So if you never thought about what your story looks like, people who've read the book have gone, I've now got confidence. If someone says to me, "What is a Christian? Why are you a Christian? Why are you religious?" I can answer that question. It'll help you be a better friend. So help you make connections with people. And I believe as Christians, we should be the best friends in the world. Help you do a bit of that better. It'll help you pray for some friends. And finally, it will help you do that thing that so many of us are terrified by, but genuinely is the best thing in the world. If one of our friends says to us, "I want to become a Christian, what do I do?" Over the years of training people in evangelism, not many people have been able to know confidently and clearly what to do in that moment. So the book really simply helps someone make the most important decision of their life. And so that's what the book's about. It's framed around stories. We've got a story. God's got a story. There's a story going on in culture, but the other person has a story. And the book's about how we bring those together. Would love you to check it out. You can get it from Amazon or wherever you get your books. It's called Story Bearer. And do you know what? If you sign up as an EA member tonight, I'll sign you a copy and send you one out. Mention it in the email. £3 a month. Can't say fairer than that.
Yeah. What a deal.
Amazing,
what a deal. It's almost worth signing up again, huh? You need to get a campaign going called Be More Albert. That is where you've got to go. Be More Albert.
There we go.
That's amazing. So clearly you're really passionate about ecumenical work and you've been involved in so many different festivals. Tell us a bit about what you've been part of, because we love hearing and working with the other festivals. You know, we're all in this together. So tell us what you've been a part of, what you might be a part of this next year or so as well.
Yeah, my word, all kinds of things. Yeah, I mean, over the years, I've spent a lot of time at New Wine. So some part of the kind of youth teams and spoke at, I think the last time New Wine was in person. I was there doing a couple of evenings, which was fun. I've been involved in Spring Harvest for many years. And so spent a lot of my time in fields or at Butlins, and then kind of various other bits and pieces, so kind of pop-up festivals and youth weekends away. But yeah, those two have been the kind of main ones I've been at over the years, and just love it. One of the reasons I started with Youth for Christ originally was a friend of mine did some research and found you could achieve about 6 months worth of youth ministry in the space of a weekend.
Yeah.
And when you speak to so many people, it's often festival moments, isn't it? It's those kind of mountaintop moments where people go, "Do you know what? I'm all in. This is a moment where I'm going to make a decision." And that's why it's brilliant what you're doing. That's why Cedarwood is so key as a place in the kingdom. So that's I love festivals, love being part of the buzz. They're such a key part of so many people's stories. So well done in what you're doing. It's brilliant.
They definitely are, and I think that you can usually pinpoint something to a moment at a festival that was transformational, and particularly for young people, it can be the thing that goes, yeah, I'm going after it, I'm all in for Christ. So what are you excited about for Cedarwood Festival yourself? How are you going to be involved? How are the EA going to be involved? What are you thinking for Cedarwood Festival?
Yeah, great. Massively looking forward to it. So yeah, I think what I love about it is it's kind of your wholehearted commitment to being Bible focused. You know, we in today's day and age, I think so much is shifting around us. We need firm foundations on which to stand. And we need to let the truth of the Bible transform our culture, not the other way around.
Yes.
And so I just love, and so really looking forward to just opening up the Bible and unleashing the power of the Word. And I know you're also passionate about the Spirit alongside that. And so that combination of Word and Spirit is just beautiful. People desperately need to encounter Jesus. And I think the incredible thing about Cedarwood as well is that kind of 24/7 prayer and worship as well. That I think, it doesn't matter whatever's going on, we can be constantly encountering Jesus, and those moments of encounter. I guess my prayer for us as Cedarwood is that in years to come, it will be people who look back and go, it was at that festival that Jesus transformed my life, that I became a Christian, that I had a profound moment where Jesus transformed the direction of my life, called me onto something new, broke my heart for a people group I now serve, called me to serve more in my church, in my community, in my workplace, in the public sphere, no matter what that might be. And just knowing you guys, I know that's going to be an absolutely core to who you are and what you're doing. But I think what I'm most passionate about is people just encountering Jesus, having fresh revelation from the Word. But also, what I said when we finally get together, what a sense of joy it will be. What a kind of real sense of community. And again, knowing you guys, you'll do such a good job of bringing people together. And I think from an EA perspective, what we love is just unity. And I think as we've kind of chatted to you guys, and we know that that's absolutely core to what you're doing, and recognizing your space in the tapestry of what God's doing across the whole nation, especially that heart for the North. It's just absolutely critical at this time. So thank you.
No, Phil, that's really great. And we're looking forward to having you and Gav and our friends up in our friends Fred as well from north of the wall, being involved as well. Fred Drummond, obviously running EA Scotland, is a keen, passionate supporter of the festival as well, and so we're looking forward to many people being involved, whether it be sharing word or being a part of a Q&A. That was going to be awesome. Yeah, and we're really excited as well. Just to mention a few of the other organisations that are on board. There's Youth for Christ, I think, YWAM. There's The Message. There's other kids ministries involved, and Burn 24/7. We really believe, as you've just said, Phil, that people will encounter Christ in different ways. Some will be through the Word, some will be through the worship times, the prayer and the sung worship, and others through the kids ministry. And don't we know how important the kids ministry is going to be? This next generation of young people and young leaders also kind of joining the flock. So it's going to be really good. It's really exciting, and we're really excited for you to be involved as well, Phil. So thanks for that. But as we're wrapping up, I just wanted to just talk briefly about how we can be praying for you as a ministry, EA, Evangelical Alliance. Just if anyone missed that, and then also you as a person in your role, Phil, as well. Just maybe share a few points on that and the network. Anyone who's listening, either now live or kind of moving forward, can maybe be praying for that.
Yeah, a key thing for us moving forward as the Evangelical Alliance is that we really want to be as brave and as kind as we can. So first on the brave thing, we are stepping into spaces and I guess trying to kind of take bullets for the church this time in terms of speaking up on issues that aren't always easy to speak up on, but require great bravery in that public space as our world, as the prevailing wind of culture becomes more post-Christian, pluralistic, secular and liberal. How can we stand up for the truth of the Bible and the views of evangelical Christians? We're trying to be brave and try and fight some of the battles so that the church doesn't have to. So I think that's the first thing we really value praise for. And it's hard. We all like to be liked, right? And sometimes when you're in those spaces, you're not liked, you're not loved. So please pray for us for real boldness and bravery there. And the second thing is just trying to be kind as well. So we don't do it so people will love us, but we just really want to come across as Christ-like as possible. and treat people as Jesus would in those spaces. And those two things aren't mutually exclusive. You know, there's a real sense we can be kind of kind and loving to people, even if we profoundly disagree with them on some things. I think moving forward in some of our activity, kind of, I am really excited about what God's going to do over the coming days as people emerge from this moment that's kind of shaken the foundations from under so many people. And people are crying out for something. It should be, shouldn't it, that at times of natural disaster, people run away from God, right? But they don't. Times of natural disaster, loads of people come to faith. So I guess we want to make the most of this opportunity while recognizing the gravity of the moment. And then for me personally, within that, my role in trying to help the whole church around 18 to 30s, we've got a really key resource coming out in June called 7 Conversations. And that's really trying to help the church. It's not a blueprint for young adult ministry. It's a load of questions that we think we need to be asking as a church to really help the whole church reach every young adult and see a church thriving amongst all generations and significant numbers of 20s and 30s coming to faith. You can really pray for me in that and for real wisdom for impact for that as well. So yeah, we'd really thank you so much for your prayers. Really value those.
That's awesome, Phil. Thanks for that. And just as we are wrapping up, for those who want to maybe find out more about Evangelical Alliance and you know, maybe follow and maybe sign up and get involved, maybe buy the book, how can they do that? Maybe if they've got any questions as well.
Yeah, if you go to our website, eauk.org, all of the stuff's on there. If you'd love to join us, eauk.org/join. As I say, if you sign up as a result of this, just mention in the little message box that you heard about it from a enthusiastic, balding, brummy bloke, and I'll make sure you get a signed copy of my book. And in terms of the book, you can get it from wherever you get your Christian books. So Amazon, Eden, CLC, the lot. It's there. WH Smith. When it first came out, I said, "My mum on WH Smith." It was very exciting. So yeah, also available on ebook and Audible. If you want to listen to me read it passionately, you can also listen to it. So there you go.
What a treat! Well, for those who want to hear more of Phil, this 48 minutes wasn't enough. Then get that ebook and get listening. How long is that ebook, Phil? Is it 3 or 4 hours?
About 6 hours. So you can
6 hours.
Yeah.
Wow. So
Yeah.
your heart out, get that long train journey and get listening. Well, guys, that does bring us to a wrap of this episode, and what a pleasure it is to have you, Phil, joining us today. To find out more about EA and the work they do across the UK, the links will be below in the description, and the video will be online for all to view after this as well. But thank you to all our listeners, Karen for joining me today as well, subscribers, Festival Network and beyond for joining us. We look forward to next time. But until then, God bless and stay safe. There we go.